And I think I am live now. Yeah, I am live today by myself, looking to do an AMA with you guys. Ask me anything, and I have no idea where this just might go because I haven't done an AMA live in like a month or two. So I thought I need to start doing these a little bit more often, so I can do them kind of right as I get home from work. And here we are. That's what this is all about. So start throwing your questions over there in the chat. I will do my best to speak articulately while trying to find questions to answer. And it looks like we've already got a whole bunch of people showing up in here. So we'll find out what happens with all of that fun stuff. But yeah, we have already got a bunch of people in here saying all sorts of stuff. Someone asked, why is the stream not live? That's because you are so early to the stream that the buffering that I have built into it so that it's a little bit smoother and not as choppy. You are here so early, you are on the stream before the actual signal started playing. So that just means you're an early adopter if you were here when it said that it was offline. With that said, let's see if I got to have any questions. Question number 1 from Rice Duke. Do you watch hockey at all? And my answer to that is sort of. I watch live hockey sometimes. The Texas Stars are out of the Austin area. My in-laws used to live half of a mile from the Cedar Park Center where they would do their games. And so we used to go all the time when they lived there. Then they moved to Georgetown, which is 20 miles away from the Cedar Park Center. So we don't go nearly as often as we used to go. But we used to go to 10 games a season for 4 or 5 years there. So I watched a lot of hockey. I don't watch professional hockey. I don't watch NHL or anything like that. But did watch live hockey for a while. And Texas Stars are the one level down from NHL. They feed into the Dallas Stars, as you might have been able to guess from their name. All right. Jacob Silvers, I'm sure I botched that. What is your all-time favorite movie? I don't really have all-time favorites at all. Like, I don't like to pick favorites, which people might be surprising about me because, I rank things on here. Like, here's my favorite out of this category. But because it's a smaller group, it's like a franchise, I can think through it a little bit different. But when it's like all-time, all movies, I am not very good at picking favorites, and I don't like to. Same with music, things like that. I just do not like having to pick favorites. And so I don't really have one. I did a video back in January where I kind of gave you my 10 favorites. So you can look up Sean Chandler favorites, and that kind of gives you the best estimation of my 10 favorite movies of all time. I didn't even in that, I didn't actually pick what my favorite was. I actually put like the Star Wars trilogy as my top favorite movie. And inside of that, I would say that Empire is my favorite Star Wars movie, but I would never say that Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie of all time. And so I just don't really like to pick favorites. It's one of those quirky things about me. Someone asked, do I live in Austin? I don't live in Austin. I live north of Austin, near Round Rock. I guess I live in Hutto is where I live. I was trying to be like subtle about it. Like, I don't want to give too many details, but if you look in the description of my post, I have a P.O. box, and it's in the city I live in. So I live in Hutto, Texas, which is by Round Rock, Texas, which is by Austin, Texas. All right, next question. Mystery 4679 says, what's your favorite franchise? So if we're going to pick some favorite movie franchises, they're pretty obvious ones. So Star Wars, of course. Based on modern stuff, original trilogy Star Wars, of course. MCU, like current running, what they're doing with the MCU, I just think is phenomenal. I just think that as this kind of gigantic shared universe, the level to which they're keeping the quality up is just phenomenal. Really special what they've been able to do with the MCU. Indiana Jones, Die Hard. But it's tricky because the ones that I would normally default go to I've kind of gone off the rails a little bit. Die Hard 5 is terrible. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, kind of an off one there. But, of modern things running that I think is like the coolest thing running right now, it is the MCU because it's a shared universe of that size is so impressive to me. The original Star Wars trilogy is very important to me. So it's once again, picking favorites, not my favorite thing to do. I get this question a lot. Ranch King says, do you watch Game of Thrones? Sort of. If you guys know too much about my backstory, I'm very churchy. I worked at a church for 8 years, and my degree's in Bible. And Game of Thrones is very hard R. It's not just that there's violence and sexual content. It's like sadistic violence at times. It's very intentionally taboo, weird stuff. The first episode of Game of Thrones, it's like a brother molesting his sister and brother and sister having sex with each other. And like it's very far down. And so it's not a show that I watch a lot, basically for that reason. I think I've seen the first 2 seasons spread over the span of 5 years or so. Likewise, it's a show that, I get asked to talk about it on my channel all the time. And I just don't know that I would, for the same reason that like I watched Blockers and was like, I've seen this, I have thoughts on it, but I don't necessarily want that to be kind of what my channel's about. Not that I don't talk about R-rated movies, and it's not like I have a clear, distinct line, but there's just specific things where I go, this is outside of what I want to talk about on my channel. So I have seen it, but I think I'm on like episode 2 of season 3 is where I'm at, trying to very slowly watch through it. I think my wife and I binged watched season 1, and then one of our children was born, and then you get into the beginning of season 2 with her killing babies and stuff, and we're like, this is a bit too far for what we want to watch right now. Okay. Ethan the Guy says, Mission Impossible or James Bond, love your videos. Hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I would go with Mission Impossible pretty strongly. I enjoy James Bond. I enjoy quite a bit of James Bond, but it's never one that I've been like, I'm a James Bond guy, that I love James Bond. And I've seen all the movies, probably leading up to whenever the next one comes out. I might try and watch all of them and review them. I'd love to do that. Even I had a fan mail me a book, and I'd love to kind of read along with history and all that. I'd love to do all that stuff. But Mission Impossible is one of those key kind of franchises for me that I've just always loved. So yeah, I would go with Mission Impossible, and I think the quality level of Mission Impossible has always been so high, besides the second one, which is to say 80% of the time it's been fantastic, or more than 80% of the time it's just been fantastic. And that's a neat franchise when you have that, consistently have that high of quality. So it's more kind of definitive for me, whereas James Bond's ones that like, oh yeah, I really like some of these movies. Some of them are excellent, and then there's just a lot more of them. Like, I don't like the Roger Moore stuff really. So there's some of my quick thoughts on it. Here's an interesting one from Winston, one of my frequent commenters. We go back and forth a little bit. He says, why do you defend John Campea? And my answer to that is, I don't know that I do defend John Campea, because I don't know that he needs to be defended. I don't understand even the question, really. We've kind of had some of these back and forths where he's kind of been critical of Campea. And I feel like there's like some conspiracy theory stuff about Campea because he's so popular. People, is when you get to a certain level of popularity, there's so many people have opinions about you, and people start putting pieces together. I just don't have a cynical perspective on him. I think there's a very obvious interpretation of who he is, that he's kind of entrepreneurially bent. He's a person that likes to kind of do his own thing. He's a guy that just loves movies, and people want to read conspiracies into all sorts of things that I just don't understand. From my money, if I were to kind of, who do I think has the highest percentage of good thoughts on movie news? I would say John Campea has the highest percentage of good thoughts on movie news. I think he's totally off the rails about 10% of the time, and I hear what he's saying. I was like, how are you so wrong? And then about 80% of the time, I was like, that's the best take there is on this. And about 10% of the time, I'm like, maybe. I'm a little mixed on it. But of people out there that kind of talk about movie news, he's the person that makes the most sense to me, that seems to talk about it from like a perspective that just is grounded. It has fanboy love, but it's not driven by fanboy emotion. It's driven by common sense. And you got about 10% crazy. Now I'm like 75% crazy with my sorts of thoughts. But I don't even reading the question. I thought it was interesting that you would bring it up, but I don't know why I wouldn't. Like why I would be. I don't understand why I would be negative or cynical towards him. Even like a couple days ago, he was talking about box office numbers for Star Trek movies or something in a video of his I watched, and I was thinking to myself, I really disagree with what he's saying right now. I think he's kind of off. But I still think he's the best in this analyst, generally speaking. Just sometimes has some thoughts that are off. And I don't buy the conspiracy theory stuff. I guess that would be my answer, my quick answer to it. I don't know why I would need to defend him. All right, there's so many comments in here. If you guys don't know, I'm doing this one on my own. And so I don't have anyone driving questions for me. So I'm doing the best I can with what I can do. Pop Gamer 1202 says, thoughts on The Walking Dead. So here's my experience with The Walking Dead is that, so I was an early adopter. I started watching, the only show I've ever bought a season pass from iTunes for a whole season was the first season of Walking Dead. Before it debuted, I bought the season pass of Walking Dead. And loved it. I watched like season 1 like 8 times or something before season 2 debuted. Just loved season 1. And then season 2 meandered a little bit. In season 1 was, I think, 6 episodes. Real tight. Each episode was in a different location, kind of shifting around, quick moving story. And then season 2, they go to this farm in the first episode. And we're at the farm for 12 episodes or something. Like season's twice as long and has half as many locations as the 6 episode beginning one. And there's some behind the scenes drama with the show where Frank Darabont was kind of run off. So it's not clear exactly what happened, but so he was kind of fired. So that kind of little bit of sour taste for some of us. And then Sam Witwer, very prominent voice actor. He played Doomsday sort of on Smallville. He was in the first episode of The Walking Dead, and he's in the tank as a dead body. And Frank Darabont had a whole plot line where the season 2 debut is going to be this whole backstory of kind of the fall of society that led up to this tank in the story of Sam Witwer being. So it's going to be Sam Witwer's story. And he did an interview a couple years after some of the stuff went down with Frank, and he just trashed people doing The Walking Dead. I mean, it did not have good things to say about the producers of the show, and had great things to say about Frank Darabont and kind of the feeling of betrayal of the way some stuff went down with the first 2 seasons of Walking Dead, and how great what Frank was trying to do and how not so great what AMC had done. So I was a little bit underwhelmed with what they did with season 2. I see this interview. It went into season 3. And I don't remember the exact... My wife doesn't really like violent stuff. Certainly doesn't like zombie stuff. She doesn't do horror movies at all. I learned that first year of marriage. I showed her the movie Frailty, which isn't even like all that hard R or anything, but it just kind of messed with your brain a little bit, and it went bad. I learned, don't show her things that freak her out. When she says she doesn't do something, you listen to her. And so then she didn't do Walking Dead at all. Somewhere around halfway through season 3, we start, I think my wife was pregnant or we had a kid. And there's a thing that happens involving the family of Rick's family. I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know how many episodes into it. Involving childbirth, families, life, death. And I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that might watch the show. And for me, with where I was in life, with my wife not wanting to watch the show and me not wanting to I ended up stop watching, basically with that episode. And so then I was going to pick it back up. It wasn't like I was done. I was angry. It was just like, I'm not going to keep watching this week to week, meaning to catch up on it. And I've never done it. I've never really felt like I missed out. What I keep hearing from people is like every season's like a tease. Like you're thinking it's building towards this big thing, and it leads to the same revelation. The humans are worse than the zombies. We need to go somewhere else. Oh, I think we're safe. Oh, the humans are worse than the zombies or something. Same kind of repeating the same thing. And it's what I kept hearing from people. So I never picked it back up, kind of for that reason. So that is my full experience, thoughts on The Walking Dead. I loved the first 6 episodes. Loved it. I thought it was amazing. Best television out there type thing. And then by the few episodes into season 3, I stopped and never went back to it. Okay. Questions. Do you watch wrestling? No, I don't watch wrestling. And I probably would if I had, if like my kids got into it or something like that, I would. But I just haven't as of yet. All right, sorry, I missed some super chats in here. Tay Cool says, can you dab, and how's your day been? All right, let me see if I can dab. Is it like that? I'm out of touch with these things, so is that the one that I'm supposed to let me see if I can get this on camera fully. Hey, here's my shelves. I don't know. I'm doing my best for it. How was my day? My day was busy. I had a very busy day at work, and so it was pretty... yeah, I just had a full day of delivering paint. I think a guy called in sick, so they changed my orders around. So I was driving all around Austin delivering about 5,000 gallons of paint today. So that was how my day was. Thank you for the super chat. Then Ethan Miranda Gale says, what are your theories about Avengers 4? I don't have a ton of Avengers 4 theories yet, and I'll probably make a video when we get a trailer or a title, something that kind of locks it in a little bit more, but I don't know yet. But my first thoughts as to it would be that I suspect that the way they're going to battle the Time Stone is using the quantum stuff from Ant-Man and the Wasp. If you haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, plug your ears, very light spoiler. So in that post-credits scene, there's a throwaway line where they say, hey, stay away from time portals, wouldn't get lost in time. They say something like that. That's just if you're doing this cute little scene, every single line matters. Like everything you say absolutely matters. And they throw in this little thing about time holes or whatever right before people turn to dust. Clearly, they are planting seeds for paths where they can go to battle the Time Stone. Maybe it's not going to play out like that. And we've heard stories, rumors that they were shooting stuff in New York that looked like they were refilming the Battle of New York and things like that. So that's one theory that's kind of the key thought that I have as to where they're going with things. Obviously, they're planning on bringing Captain Marvel in some sort of way into it. There's a lot. I'm hearing a lot of speculation or thoughts where people are like, could Ultron have beaten Thanos if Ultron had been active, he could have stopped him? So I wonder if there's some sort of method by which you like really tie all three Avengers movies together and you have whatever plays out in that Battle of New York time travel stuff, and maybe then they tie it back into Ultron things. There's some things that you could tie some things together and do some pretty cool stuff using time travel. That's the best I got. Without knowing more, I don't want to go too crazy. So those are the thoughts that I have thus far. Thank you for the super chat, Jack Furtzenberg says, "Great channel. What is your best movie experience?" So an interesting best movie experience that I've had was, obviously I loved Infinity War. I loved the original Avengers. Seeing The Dark Knight. Two come to mind that are kind of outside of the obvious great movies. One would be when I went to go see Fast 5 at an actual midnight screening. So the whole thing where movies kind of debut at 7 o'clock the night before they release is pretty new. I mean, it's like the last 5 years. And so it used to be that they would come out at like midnight. That was even kind of a big deal for a while. They literally came out the day of they released. And then they started doing the midnight screenings at some point in time. But it was only for big releases. It would be at midnight. So I went to go see Fast 5 at a midnight screening. And just a fun experience. I mean, you pulled in the parking lot and it's just hot rod cars everywhere. People revving up their engines. It's just a lot of fun sort of environment. I go into the movie. And I'm seeing it in XD, so not quite IMAX, but gigantic screen, great sound system, enormous stadium seats. And people are so amped up. This literally happens. A guy is running down the staircase, and he jumps over the rail to where the walk-in and out space is. But it's stadium seating, so he jumps over this thing, not thinking, I'm jumping over a rail that's like 15, 20 feet up. So he just jumps over a rail and falls down 15, 20 feet with 300 people in the theater watching him do this. We're just like, hey, look at that guy. Whoa! Did that guy just jump over the rails and just jumped over it into the railway? Craziness. So that was number one. Number two, I saw Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol at an actual Bob Bullock theater in downtown Austin, true IMAX. And that sequence on the Dubai Tower is the best sequence I've ever seen in a movie theater. So those are the two that come to mind of just best theater experiences. Leah just sent in a super chat for $1. No question attached to it. Thank you so much for that. I greatly appreciate it. Nate Harkins asked, is The Dark Knight the best superhero movie ever? Is The Dark Knight the best superhero movie ever? Thank you for the super chat on that one. With the way the question is written, I will go with no. It is not the best superhero movie ever written. It's not designed to be the best superhero movie ever written. It's a movie with a hero that's a comic book character that's trying to be a grounded crime thriller. So to say, is it a superhero movie? I think superhero, I think superpowers, I think differently about it. Now, if you'd phrase the question, is it the best movie based off a comic book character of all time? I'm not sure. I think this fall I'm going to try and do my top 10 favorite comic book movies of all time. Sometime this fall, probably, or early next year. Kind of depends on the way the universe plays out. It's definitely in the running for best of all time. I rewatched all three of the Nolan films in the last month. Actually, I didn't rewatch all of The Dark Knight. I watched all of Batman Begins and all of... That's not even true. I watched all of The Dark Knight Rises, and my feelings on it probably went down a little bit. I fell asleep during Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. I put them on late at night, so it's not like I fell asleep because they were boring. And so it's interesting to rewatch them, having not watched them in a few years. Really, I think this is the first time I sat down to watch them since my channel started. And so it was interesting. So I'd have to think about it. I don't know what I would pick as the best. As superhero movie, I'd probably be more inclined towards Superman the movie or Avengers or Avengers Infinity War. Because they're so comic booky. They're so deep in comic booky stuff. That's why I'd be inclined to put them in that category. All right. Thank you for the super chats. Hopefully I won't... since I don't have anyone with me right now, I can easily miss some things. Okay. Snowpea says, will you do the Godfather movies ranked? Maybe at some point in time. It's a little bit tricky sometimes on these things because I have to rewatch the movies. If I haven't watched the movies in it within about a year, or if I don't know them really well, then I don't do a ranking. I have to rewatch them. And so something like The Godfather ranked, it's like 10 hours to watch all three of them. They're heavy, so they're not movies I can just easily put on the background or anything like that. So sit down to watch them. And there's nothing urgent driving it. So if I could put that one out this week or a week from now or a month from now or a year from now, and they'll do exactly the same. There's nothing urgent that, like, this week I'm doing the Jack Ryan movies because the Jack Ryan TV series is coming out. So there's something that creates that urgency to put it out. And that's kind of how I decide when to put things out. I try and look at it like, what is urgent? What's a big, important series that people are asking about a lot? I get people asking way more to rank the Tarantino movies, way more to rank David Fincher movies than I do the Godfather movies. So that's somehow how I kind of decide what I'm going to talk about on my channel. But, you know, I do the best that I can for things. Someone asks, Enrique C., thoughts on the new Suspiria trailer? I haven't seen it. Actually, I haven't seen it. So I have no thoughts on it. I don't know anything about it. I saw other people talking about it, but I just haven't watched it yet. Cameron Engel says, favorite rom-com? Probably the one that's coming to mind is While You Were Sleeping. That's just a really well done, sweet, funny, charming rom-com. Just best of Bill Pullman. Outside of Independence Day, of course, and Spaceballs. Just a nice, interesting direction for him. Sandra Bullock, just key, prime Sandra Bullock and just the whole cast of great characters. So I'd go with While You Were Sleeping. John Turteltaub, National Treasure, The Meg, that guy that did those ones. He directed it, and it's just I've never met anyone that didn't like While You Were Sleeping. It's if you don't like, because it's not like it's super girly. It's not like it's anything that would be off-putting to anyone. It's just a nice little sweet comedy that's really likable. So I would go with While You Were Sleeping. That's the one that's come to mind. I haven't come up with another one. All right. Just got a new super chat in. Kellen O'Rourke, thank you so much for the super chat. What do you think of Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth leaving Star Trek 4? Well, I don't think it's confirmed that they've left. They're in contract negotiation. So it's like this kind of bit messy thing where they're trying to figure out the money on it. I highly suspect what's going on right now is that the studio's going Beyond was a drop in the box office. Critics liked it. Everyone that saw it liked it, but it was a drop in the box office. And they're making these $200 million blockbusters, and they're not getting $200 million blockbuster box office results. Even the first two movies did good at the box office. They did better than Beyond, but they didn't do what you really want a $200 million blockbuster to do. And they're looking at it going, the Star Trek fan base, they're making more money than Star Trek movies have made before, but it's more like a mile wide and an inch deep. It's not people that are loving Star Trek, rabid fan base like they had in the 80s, 90s. It's a broader audience is like, oh yeah, the Star Trek movies are kind of cool. And they're alienating some of the older fans a little bit. And so the studio's looking at all this kind of going, okay, I don't think we could do another $200 million movie. So how do we get this down to a $150 million movie? How do we do this $125 million movies? And like I said, this is all just kind of my speculation. But so then you start to go into doing the fourth movie. And as of right now, it's been 9 years since the first Star Trek movie came out. Chris Pine has only... Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth, because they're both in the first one. Chris Hemsworth in particular is only in that first 10 minutes and was a nobody. I mean, both were kind of nobodies at the time, but very early in their careers, and they're both leading men who have both been in massive comic book movies, both have been in other roles. They can easily demand much bigger paychecks than they could when they signed their contracts 10 years ago. And that's a problem when the box office is kind of doing this a little bit, and their paychecks are doing this. So what do I think about it? My biggest inclination is to say that I think part of the problem is that they did an experiment trying to turn Star Trek into big blockbusters, and the experiment did okay. It didn't do great, and I think a big message is that Star Trek at its core probably belongs on television. And there's some Star Trek movies obviously have done well over the years, but they were continuations of a TV show. And the Star Trek movies from the 80s, the first one had a blockbuster budget. The budget for Star Trek 2 was like $11 million. It was like a third of the budget of Star Trek the Motion Picture. And a lot of those ones in the 80s, comparable to other blockbusters of the time, were relatively low-budgeted movies. And likewise, the Next Generation movies, relatively low budget for the time and being big sci-fi movies. And my general inclination is to say that Star Trek probably at its core, with the nature of discovery, character-based, cerebral, at the core of what Roddenberry's Star Trek was, it's more of a television thing, I think. Even though I've loved all three of the J.J. Abrams Trek films. So that's probably an overly long answer to your question. Real quick, JBO2 says, what is your favorite Tarantino movie? And he says mine is Pulp Fiction. As for me, currently right now, I am slowly watching through the Tarantino movies to be able to rank them. It's just tricky with a wife, kids, and things like that. So I've made it through Death Proof. So I got 3 left to do. So I'll have a ranking in theory soon, but it's just started going really slow. Those last 3 are all long and intense, and not ones to easily just kind of throw on the background or anything like that. What's my favorite? Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction's my favorite Tarantino movie. Some of that's just because it's one of those kind of pivotal movies of when I was discovering deeper movies and not just blockbusters and things like that. Pulp Fiction's one of the first ones that was like, oh, Pulp Fiction, this is cool. So it's very important to me. It was a very important movie in general when it came out. It's a great example of how movies can be just break every rule and still work somehow in ways that you can't fully explain. I mean, it's just everything about story arcs and things like that. It just kind of throws that out and does something different. It still works, feels satisfying at the end somehow. So I would go with Pulp Fiction, largely driven by nostalgia. All right. Well, what do we got in here? Someone keeps asking, Rejected Dan keeps asking, Batman Returns or Doctor Strange? That seems like a very random two movies to like, do you like this movie that's from 25 years ago from Tim Burton or this very recent movie in the MCU that's, the 14th movie in the MCU? Seems kind of random, but between the two, I would go with Doctor Strange, I think. It's very difficult to compare, though. I haven't watched Batman Returns in a number of years, so I'm kind of going from memories, and it's a movie that is so weirdly Tim Burton. It's tough to evaluate because it's a Batman movie that's so distinctly Tim Burton and gets so dark at the end with trying to kill all the firstborn kids and things like that, and biting off ears and Penguin becoming a politician. There's so many odd things about it that I tend to have strange thoughts. I need to rewatch it, especially now that I think about movies very differently than I did 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, even 1 year ago. So maybe I'd change my mind if I rewatched it, but that's my first gut reaction is to go in that direction. Skytard 0902. If you could live in, and this is a super chat, thank you once again. If you could live in any fictional universe, which would you choose and why? Fictional universe, which one would I choose? Oh, that's tough. Because, Star Wars would be cool because there's force use and things like that, but that's a rough universe. The Star Wars universe, the government blows up planets from time to time. There's these massive revolutions where evil emperors take over. So I don't think I'd want to go Star Wars because it's nuts. And it, weirdly super high technology and super low tech in other ways. Very feudal. So I think I'll pass on Star Wars universe. I think I want to live in the DC universe, a universe where Superman exists and all these other mythological type superheroes, not just like the Marvel universe where they're more like normal people that gain superpowers and things like that, like Spider-Man. But I want to go in the mythological god one where Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman exist. I think that's where I'm going to go, and because I want to meet the Superman, this really nice superhero. I think that's the direction that I'm going to go. Jimmy Neutron, thoughts on Donald Trump? I think I'm going to very politely pass on getting political. Let's just drop a bomb on my channel. No, thank you. Ryan Burns says, can you rank all the Lego movies? I have. I've ranked all the theatrically released ones. Just do a Google search on that one. A bunch of people asking for my favorite Chris's. How to rank the Chris's. Man, I don't even think I could rank all the superhero Chris's right now. That would be a tough one to do. I think on a personal level, Chris Pratt just seems like the most down-to-earth A-lister out there right now. Just super normal. And even the way he talks about things and deals, it just seems like a normal guy. So I think I'd put him at the top. And then second, I think I would go with Chris Hemsworth because he just seems like a funny guy. That's just seems. I'm interested. He just seems like a funny guy. I'll just put it like that. And then tied at third, I'll go Pine and Evans. I think I'll tie the two of them. I don't think I could pick which one goes third and which one goes fourth. Logan Schrenker says, do you think the Star Wars movies are going downhill? Sort of. I think they're not event movies anymore. Solo proved that. They're not the event movies that they used to be. The appeal, the aura of life. A new Star Wars movie is so far gone. I retweeted this out today, but The Meg, the dumb shark movie, has outgrossed Solo. That is mind-blowing to me. The Meg. If you had told me January 1st, You know what? I'll bet you the Meg outdoes Solo. I'd be like, there's 0% chance, you're insane. I will take that bet and I'm going to make a ton of money. And I would have lost a bunch of money because the allure of Star Wars seems to be kind of fading. I really liked The Force Awakens. And I thought Rogue One had some rough things about it, but generally liked what they were going for. I appreciate what they were trying to do with Last Jedi, but it didn't fully work for me. I rewatched it a number of times, and it doesn't. I don't like what they did. I don't like the direction that they went with it. But it's not like feel like I'm burned or anything like that. But it seems a little bit off. And then Solo felt like them aiming for a single, and they got a single. That's what it felt like to me. Aiming for a single, a double. They weren't trying to hit it out of the park. They weren't trying to make the best movie ever. They weren't trying to make the best Star Wars movie. They're aiming pretty low with it, and they got on base. That's what they're aiming for, and that's what they got. And so I look at that and I go, Star Wars movies used to be these big, iconic events, and now it's like, oh yeah, we're just aiming for a single now. So in that sense, I would say, I think they need to rethink their strategy. Is I think what I would think that they very much need to do. All right, let's see. What do we got in here? Okay. All right. Burning Duck says, do you think Shrek could live without onions? I'll be honest with you guys. I don't think I've seen any of the Shrek movies from beginning to end. I've seen sort of all of them in different contexts and in different ways. I don't think I've ever sat down and just watched from beginning to end any of the Shrek movies. So people ask me to rank the Shrek movies all the time, and I'm sure it'll happen at some point in time. I just haven't actually watched them, which some of you guys, that probably sounds crazy to you because that was your childhood. Just think, I'm just enough older than you that by the time the first Shrek movie came out, I was like 20 years old. And when you're 20 years old and there's like a new animated movie that comes out and it's like, hey, talking animals. When I was 20, I was like, oh, Memento, this is awesome. And seeing all these artsy type movies and stuff like that, my thought was not, I'm going to go watch the new talking animal movie where they start singing Sir Mix-a-Lot during the credits. Like, that's not where I was at. They're just not movies that have ever, been event movies for me. So at some point in time I'll watch them. But so I don't know the answer to your question about him and onions. Let's see. Sonic Fan says, yo, what's up, Sean Chandler? Not much. Just talking movies with you guys. Hopefully doing a good job and not being too boring or spending too much time rambling on about different things. Someone says, what's your thoughts on the How to Train Your Dragon movies? I think they're very well-made animated movies, and my kids love the show on Netflix as well. It's very, production value-wise. There's a lot of these spin-off shows for kids' movies and animated films that are just kind of garbage. just animation is much lower quality. They get different voices. But the How to Train Your Dragon one, it's just... It's like if I walked in and my kids were watching the TV show versus watching one of the movies, I would have to pause to watch it for a few minutes to realize, oh no, this is from the TV show, not this is I don't remember this from one of the movies. Some of the music, phenomenal music, great animation. But to another point, I haven't watched the trailer for the new one yet. Basically, generally speaking, if I don't do a reaction for a trailer, I probably haven't watched it. And that's intentional because I prefer to watch a trailer for the first time in the theater. But for the channel, sometimes I have to watch them here on my laptop and to entertain you guys. But if I don't do that, I'll wait until I see it in the theater. And so, as it's turned out, I just haven't seen the How to Train Your Dragon one yet. All right. Lifted Clash says, I think my voice just cracked. What's your favorite Disney movie? If I'm going to take the question as animated Disney movies, I would probably go Lion King with a close second or reasonable second of Beauty and the Beast. I am of the perfect age that the Disney Renaissance that started with The Little Mermaid and I think went through Hercules, that was, I remember seeing The Little Mermaid in the theater. That's one of those early movies that I remember seeing with some of those first set of films that I saw in the theater, The Little Mermaid, and then, having the tape for Aladdin. And so that's like what I think is, most people think is one of the best eras of Disney. That's my childhood. And so I have so much nostalgia for that set through The Lion King. And then they hold up well. They're just real great movies. So those two are the obvious ones. I also saw The Lion King at a double feature at a drive-in movie theater. And went to see The Lion King over here, and there's like two different theaters. And then for the second movie, I don't remember what I was supposed to see as my second movie after The Lion King, but I ran over to the other screen where they're showing True Lies and watched True Lies at a drive-in movie theater right after The Lion King. And so that's a very fond movie memory from my childhood. Okay, let's see. What do we got next? All right, we got a super chat from Chamberhawk17. He says, and thank you so much for that, thoughts on Babylon 5 and Doctor Who. All right, so for Babylon 5, I never really gave it its shot. I'm sure I've seen some episodes because it was run during the 90s and I watched a lot of that syndicated stuff kind of randomly back in the 90s. But I never really gave it a shot to have a formal opinion on it. And then for Doctor Who, this is one that I've tried on about 4 different occasions to get into Doctor Who. Because I watch so many other nerdy type things, people wonder all the time, like, are you into Doctor Who? And they ask me, and a lot of people assume I'm into Doctor Who. And so about every 2 or 3 years, I try and get into Doctor Who. And so I watched the first series when it was on Netflix, and just never got, I didn't get it at all. I didn't connect with it. And then I asked some people, what else should I try and check out? I didn't dig the first series. What else you got? And so they sent me somewhere, and I watched a few more episodes with a different doctor, and it just did not click for me. And then I was watching one of the shows on Collider.com, and I think Robert Meyer Burnett talked about Torchwood in one of the series on Torchwood. I think it was series 3. And I don't remember what it was called. And he said, there's some of the best sci-fi television ever done. I was like, all right, I'll give kind of this offshoot of Doctor Who a shot. And I like that more than Doctor Who. A good bit more, the Torchwood season that I watched. But still, it was just, for whatever reason, the way it's done, it just doesn't click with me the way that I expect it to either. I'm just as surprised that I don't like Doctor Who as all the people that want me to like Doctor Who. It just hasn't worked for me. Let me see what. A lot of people asking me about favorites, and I just don't have I'm not good at picking favorites, so I don't really have answers on a lot of them. Captain Billy the Kid says, should the DCEU reboot? Whew. I think they've dug a hole for themselves that they can't get out of. But it's tricky, and that's what part of the reason that the hole that they're in is so deep. Like Wonder Woman's working, so you got to do Wonder Woman too, and obviously they are doing Wonder Woman 1984. But their Batman problem. I mean, I tweeted this out yesterday. There's literally a new Batman rumor every single week. Every single Tuesday, there's a Ben Affleck rumor every week. He is coming back. He's not coming back. Rehab, set things back. Insurance costs because of And then there's also a rumor about they're getting Jake Gyllenhaal. They're getting Oscar Isaac. They're getting every single week. And so it seems like they've kind of run Batman into a corner. And they kind of did that from the get-go by setting up a scenario where he's so well established and it's such a niche version of Batman where he's got machine guns and he's angry and he's killing people and Robin's dead. And then problems with doing and then likewise doing so much deep comic book stuff with Doomsday, Death and Return of Superman, so early on, while being so Man of Steel came out 5 years ago and they still haven't greenlit Man of Steel 2. They went straight, they skipped over and went straight to the crossover movie, and so it just seems like I don't know how you get out of this weird hole that they're in. They didn't have anyone really steering the ship. And so they just started, it seemed like they were just greenlighting things left and right, and so many rumors, leaks about things that they were trying to do. And we're going to do a Nightwing movie. We're doing Green Lantern Corps. We're going to do Shazam. We're going to do Batgirl. And they hired so many people. It was just this ever cycling thing of ideas and rumors and speculation and cast. I mean, the Flash just today. The Flash seems to be delayed again. So back to your question: should they reboot the DCEU? If I'm in a corner and I have to go binary yes or no, I'm going to go yes. I think they should reboot it. I think that they should finish out with the ones that they're doing and say, we have to just cut our losses. We tried to do a cinematic universe, but we tried to do it totally the wrong way. We tried to play catch up instead of having a plan, and we're facing the consequences for doing that. Let's start over and do it right. If I have to go yes or no. Oh. Let me see here. PDG Gaming says, do you hate when you watch YouTube and get the Nun ad? No, because I have a YouTube Plus or whatever the advanced version was. So whenever Cobra Kai came out, we signed up for YouTube Red at the time. And when you do that, you don't get ads. And then a month went by and our free trial was up. And so we could have undone the $10, or we could continue to not have ads on YouTube. And we decided to continue because whatever it was, $10 a month, $8 a month, whatever it was. And I don't have any ads on YouTube. Everything we play, it's like whenever I use a different account that I have or I'm somewhere else and ads start appearing on YouTube, I'm like, what is this? Why are there ads on YouTube? And I go, oh yeah, that's because they don't have that thing that takes away all the ads. So I actually I've never seen these Nun ads. I've heard the controversy about them, but I haven't seen any of them. Oh. Alfie Fryer says, do you like Deadpool 2? I've got a review on my channel, so anytime there's one of these questions about a major movie release from this year, I've probably got a review on my channel. Short answer is, I liked it. I did not love it. Leah Elkrins, what's the worst book-to-movie adaptation in your opinion? It's tough to say what the worst one would be because there's so many out there that I haven't seen. So, for that reason, it just makes it difficult. I start trying to think through what are all the book-to-movie adaptations and what ones have been really, really bad. Or trying to think which ones felt like I know The Circle last year. I didn't read the book, but I didn't like the movie. So maybe that's one. But my wife read the book and said the book was not good either. And she described the book, and I was like, wow, that sounds it might even be worse than the movie. So, man, I can't think of one. I'm sorry, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Just trying to do all this stuff. Ivan 1993 says, do you like Predator? You should probably check the videos I put on my channel in the last few days to get an answer to that question. Thoughts on Rick, or Alpha Wolf Sports says, thoughts on Rick and Morty. I've seen 0 episodes of Rick and Morty. I don't even know what it's about. I don't even know the concept of Rick and Morty. I hear people talk about it all the time. Even at work, people are like, Rick and Morty, you watch it? I was like, no, I just haven't. And, doing this channel, it kind of drives what I watch for the most part. And since Rick and Morty's kind of established, I'm not going to start watching a show to review it. So it just becomes another show that I might as well not start watching because I'm not going to be able to keep watching it, or I'm not going to talk about it on the channel. So it just kind of eats up time. So I don't know hardly anything about it. TWR Stephanie 55, do you watch Family Guy? I have seen 1 episode of Family Guy ever. As the one... Bill Clinton's in it, starts off with an Osama bin Laden bit, and then it's Bill Clinton comes to town and everybody sleeps with Bill Clinton. That's the joke of the episode. That's the only episode I've seen. I guess I thought it was pretty funny when I watched it. I just haven't seen other episodes. So I don't have much to say about Family Guy because I've literally, and there's no reason. It's not like I've avoided it. It's not like I'm like, that show. It's nothing like that. I just haven't seen any other episodes. Let me see. What do we got here? All right, Peter Gallagher. I'm sure the actual Peter Gallagher says, "Do you like '80s TV shows like MacGyver?" I mean, that's what I grew up watching because I'm a child of the '80s. So I watched MacGyver, A-Team, and a lot of those shows. And so I've tried to go back and watch some of them as they've started to show up on Hulu and Amazon Prime and things like that. And my experience now is that I don't feel like a lot of them have aged well. Television has kind of changed and adapted quite a bit since the invention of the DVR and sort of box sets, to where television was so episodic before about the turn of the century because there wasn't an easy way to go back and watch from the beginning. And so then when you started having box sets so people could kind of start over, and then DVR kind of changed things a lot too, and then Netflix, whole game was changed, game changer for everything. To where now every show's designed to be binge watched, everything's entirely serialized. The way people watch, like it's weird to even think about that. The way you assume you're going to watch Stranger Things Season 3 is, oh, I got to map out a weekend to watch all of Stranger Things Season 3 when it drops. Whereas that was no one did that ever in the 80s. And so TV shows were just designed entirely differently to be standalone episodes week to week. And I haven't found that, when I've been like, oh, let me check out Knight Rider, let me check out this episode of Airwolf on here, and they just haven't aged well for me. They're not nearly as watchable as I would think they would be. A few exceptions, Star Trek The Next Generation being the key one. Okay. DJ Meyer, have you seen Christopher Robin? Can you review it? I have not seen it. And for that reason, I probably won't review it. Just because I missed kind of the train on that one. Movie reviews have very much kind of this 1 week window where people watch them for regular movie reviews. It's, they want to know right before it comes out, and they want to talk about it right after they see it, and then they just go dead. They don't have like a shelf life. Like my ranking videos, all of those have, people keep watching them forever. Because as soon as they discover my channel, they're like, oh, I wonder if he's talked about, the Jaws movies. Oh, he has done the Jaws. And so they discover them that they're always kind of watchable. And, people take a Saturday and binge watch my channel for a while or something like that. But movie reviews, for my channel, that's not what they do. Movie reviews kind of just disappear after about a week. And so the fact that Christopher Robin came out a month ago means, I put it out there and a handful of people would watch it now and then it would kind of disappear. And so I don't think it's very unlikely I'd put a review out for it. But when I do ever watch it, next time I do a Q&A, perhaps maybe by then I'll have thoughts on it. I saw Slender Man a week or two ago and wasn't going to do a review because it was just too late by the time it had been out for a week or something. I was like, I'm not going to review this for the same exact principle. I can talk about it now. Slender Man, the worst theatrically released movie I have seen this year. There you go. Let's see. What do we got? Hayden Fawcett, do you like Stargate? I haven't seen the TV show, but I really like the movie. I saw the movie back in the day in the theater, bought the video. I've watched the original Stargate 30 times or something like that. So I really enjoyed it, but I haven't watched the TV show. Matt Main with a super chat says this. Hey, Sean, just binge watched your 80s action movies. Have you ever watched the movie 12 Monkeys? Yes, I've watched it. Next question. No, so have I watched 12 Monkeys? Yes, I've watched 12 Monkeys several times over the different years. It's not like a highly rewatchable movie for me because it's heavy, but it's a movie I've always really liked when I have watched it. I think the kind of the twists, the turns, the reveals are earned. Like sometimes with those twists at the end, you go, really? This is where you're kind of going with this? I thought this one was like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. The misdirects and everything. Just very well packaged movie that, but it's been a while. I haven't watched it recently enough to have kind of fresh thoughts so I can dig in deep onto it. So the big thing to say is that like always when it gets to the ending of it being like, that's a good end right there. This worked. And so she said, you just binged my 80s action movies. I guess the ranking playlist that I think is probably what you're talking about. So hopefully you had fun with that. Yeah, I'm trying to do some things to help people watch some of my old rankings that I did. My old rankings are interesting. Like, I'm kind of embarrassed by them because they're so different, and I was figuring out what I was doing. And they're more podcasts. It was a lot more like I'd hit record and I would just talk for 40 minutes and then like just kind of throw that up on the internet without all the now I do all this editing and stuff on my videos. Back in the day, I mean, it really was podcast style. And so I always expect to get more negative feedback from people like this. Why are you rambling on too long? But I don't get too much of that. Dick Clark just gave me a $1 super chat. Thank you so much for that. I greatly appreciate it. All right, next quote. What do we have on here? The audience cut says, have you ever read Watchmen? Watchmen, if you're unaware, is the most celebrated graphic novel of all time from the mysterious magician Alan Moore. Yeah, of course. I've read it, I think 4 times. I think a number of times. About every 5 years I read Watchmen, something like that. And I first read it, like 15 years ago, so something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to read it because it's designed to take full advantage of the format, which is to say, a lot of the stuff that when they try to do, there's so much debate and argument. I mean, there's 20 years process of trying to getting it made. And I think Terry Gilliam, who did 12 Monkeys, was one of the people that wanted to do Watchmen for a while. I believe in the 90s, he was one of the people who was working on it. And I'm pretty sure Alan Moore said, I don't approve of any version of Watchmen that they ever tried to do. I don't endorse any of them. But the one that I least disapprove of the smallest amount was Terry Gilliam's. His was the closest, but it was still not something I approve of. But the reason Alan Moore is always so critical of the different versions of the movie is because he designed the graphic novel to be a work of art designed for this medium. And there's things about the way you read it and go frame to frame and down, and you actually turn a page, and as you turn a page, there's an experience that goes along with seeing something new, that's the way he envisioned this story being told and captured in that format, that's not the way movies work. And in particular, if you've seen like the super ultimate extended extreme director's cut edition of Watchmen, where they put the cartoon in the middle of it, I mean, it's bizarre to watch that version of Watchmen because it's like, this is not the way, this is like, what am I watching right now? Well, it works when you're doing it in a graphic novel, when there's kind of these breaks built into it, you understand what they're doing. Watching it as a movie is a strange experience. So I have read Watchmen, yes. That's a very long way to answer a yes or no question. Ben Mundy says, can you rank the Arrowverse shows, please? No, I can't because I haven't fully watched Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow or Black Lightning. I've watched all of The Flash and Arrow. I watched those ones week to week. But I just fell behind on Supergirl. I mean, I never watched Supergirl week to week, and I never watched Legends of Tomorrow week to week. And I've tried to binge watch, catch up on them. But I don't think I'm ever going to be able to catch up on all of them. I probably not. My wife's going to have a baby in a week or two, and so maybe I'll be at home and I can just binge watch through all of Supergirl. Perhaps something like I want to because I know that there's demand. I do the CW stuff, and I try to do comic book things. I do Marvel, Netflix. But same with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's just there's so much I need to catch up on. I just don't know that I'm going to be able to. So that's kind of the problem. And I hear that Superman's kind of being a little bit more, so he's going to be in the crossover. So I want to catch up so I can kind of view all of it properly, but I'm just pretty far behind. And it's tricky because people are, hey, can you rank the Shrek movies? Can you rank, I don't know, there's Tarantino movies? Can you rank all the seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Can you rank Parks and Rec? There's a lot of people kind of pulling me in different directions, and so it's not humanly possible for me to do all the things that people would like for me to do. And so, like right now, I'm working on Friday the 13th for October. I just watched all the Jack Ryan movies for this weekend. I'm watching Parks and Rec for probably next month when I finish watching all the Parks and Rec stuff. I'm about to start watching the Conjuring movies again, so I can rank the Conjuring movies after The Nun comes out. So I'm watching the Predator movies. I'm talking about the Predator movies. That's the way my mind's always thinking. There's just a lot of TV out there. There's a lot of movies out there. That's kind of how some of this stuff works. All right, Rich Reviews with a super chat. Went to see Operation Finale, and thank you for the super chat. Finale film at the Alamo. The film is about the Mossad finding Eichmann. It starred Oscar Isaac. Yeah, I haven't even seen a trailer for it. Some people have been asking me about it the last couple of days. I don't know too much of anything about it, so unfortunately I haven't seen it, and I don't know if I'll be able to because my wife's like literally we have a date set to induce on the 10th, and then the due date is September 11th. So by September 11th, I should have a new human child person here in the world. But it could be tomorrow that she goes into labor. Like, that's what my life looks like right now. It's pretty crazy. Tador Holt. Tador, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I don't think I've seen that name written before. Tador Holt with a super chat. Thank you so much. Have you seen Troy? My favorite movie by far. Yeah, I've seen Troy a number of times. Yeah, Wolfgang Peterson, right around when the Hulk came out, so Eric Bana coming off of that one, and then a very muscular Brad Pitt, Danny Kruger, right around she started doing National Treasure movies. Yeah, I mean, I love that type of movie. These kind of big time periods, epics with big, gigantic battles. So I've always enjoyed that movie. I think, we own it, and so watch it every once in a while. Of those kind of big, epic, scale type movies, it's not one of my favorites, but it's a movie that I've always enjoyed whenever I have watched it, and a genre that I thoroughly enjoy. Sorry, but I've been talking for an hour straight, and I don't think I've had a drink yet, and I think my throat just decided to catch up on me. Sorry about that. So yeah, I haven't watched it in a few years to be able to kind of give you deeper thoughts on it, except to say I definitely enjoy it. Some of the sequences are very memorable, especially that opening fight sequence where Brad Pitt first kind of shows up. He's been sleeping, or he's sleeping with a group of ladies, calls him out, and we need you to fight this guy, and he just kind of runs up, jumps in the air, stabs the guy in just the smooth motion. Very cool sequence. That's kind of my key memory from that one, but that one always sticks with me. And I go through phases where I try to get into good shape and things like that. And Brad Pitt in that movie, I first started really getting the fitness stuff around 2004, 2005. So just right around when Troy came out. So Troy, Christian Bale, and Batman Begins, going from The Machinist. Those were some of my inspirations. Ryan Reynolds in Blade Trinity. Some of those ones that when I was first kind of really getting into, like, I'm going to lift heavy weights. Ones that came to mind. So Troy even plays into some of that stuff. All right, let's see what questions we got going on up here. Daffody Galaxy says, Pepsi is better than Coke. Well, if you saw that little thing where I made the funny face, it's because my Coke ran into my Pepsi. I have one of each. So if you watch I've been mentioned several times here, I don't like really picking favorites, and that's because I like diversity. I like different things at different times, and I appreciate the differences between them. And that's also why my rankings, like my Marvel ranking, changes all the time. I recalculate, and I just like a lot of different things, so it's tricky for me to pick favorites. I'm not the kind of person that just locks in on one opinion, sticks with it long term. So yeah, I've got both of them. Even today, yesterday, I posted my review for the movie Kin, and I didn't really even want to post the review because I don't know how I feel about it yet. I'm still kind of processing it and I said in my review, it's a movie you need to process with other people, and the directors want you to talk about it with other people, and I haven't gotten to talk about it with anyone. So I posted my review yesterday. One of my friends got to go see an early screening of it last night, and he messages me like, "Whoa, man, I totally disagree with how you rated that one for these," and he starts walking through all these reasons, and I'm like, I agree with him on this. He's probably right. And tomorrow I'm going to go see it with a different friend, and he's probably going to change my mind in the opposite direction. Of like, these two friends are probably going to get like tug of war me in my direction of where I'm going to fall on the movie Kin. But I don't lock in. Like, my thinking and opinions are very malleable. I like different things and at different times, and so I am both a Coke guy and a Pepsi guy at the same time. Even that your comment about Coke Pepsi turned into me talking about the movie Kin. That's how my brain works. All right, Chamberhawk17, Super Chat, thank you so much. Thoughts on Black Lightning. So I've only seen I've only seen a few of the first 3 or 4 episodes. The problem is that CW used to have a deal with Hulu, and so their shows would be on Hulu the next day. And so I was kept up. Actually, I should have said this before. I was kept up on all the shows because I could watch them over the next week whenever I was free to watch. My kids are doing crazy things downstairs. Sorry, guys. They're screaming. Everything okay? Yeah. All right. There's loud crying. All right. They say everything is okay, though there's lots of crying. So they dropped it off of Hulu. And so I couldn't keep up. And so when Black Lightning came out, I was trying to watch it on the CW website, and it's not very good. It's not a very good interface. And I saw the question, one of my next questions I'm going to answer. The interface was bad. Like, I tried to sit down and watch it. I had it hooked up to my TV and everything, streaming it, and it just didn't work. Their website was locking and ads were looping. It's not a good, like, Hulu's a better website. And Netflix is an even better website than Hulu. And so I could only watch a few episodes because of the technology issues. And then by the time the season was done, a bunch of other seasons were done. They all popped up, landed on Netflix. And so they are there for me to archive watch. I just haven't. Crazy thing going on downstairs. But it's just, so I didn't fully get to watch through all of it for that reason, that technology. And now I'm just so far behind. So I've got Supergirl, Black Lightning, Legends, all to catch up on. The other question, what are my thoughts on Star Trek Enterprise? I've never really gotten into it. And I've been trying to. I've been slowly watching through Star Trek Enterprise since the year 2000 when it debuted. I think I watched the first episode the weekend it came out, and there's like a shower sequence in it. I was like, are you kidding me, Star Trek? Like, you're literally doing like 2 hot people in a shower, and the girl's nipples are showing through her shirt. And I was like, what? Like, this is Star Trek, and they're doing like Maxim magazine. Like, what is going on here? And so that kind of, I didn't care much for that. And so I started watching it on Netflix when it came on there, and I think I've watched half of it. I think I've watched through season 2 about. That's what I've watched, and then some of the big episodes later on I've watched, but I've just never connected with it. None of the characters stick with me, and there's some interesting ideas in it, but overall it hasn't fully worked for me. Rich Reviews also with the super chat. Thank you so much. Says boxers or briefs? That's the question I was laughing at when I saw below. Boxers. I've been a boxers guy since I was in middle school, so I just boxer. I mean, maybe I should retry briefs because I haven't done it in 20 years and give it another try, and maybe I'd make a return. But I've been a boxers guy for 20 years. One more super chat. Thank you so much from Hayden Fawcett. Have you seen MASH film or TV show? If so, thoughts? One of my favorite TV shows ever. Yeah, so I've never seen the movie ever. But like everyone else, I watched the TV show on syndication reruns my entire childhood. And like everyone else, enjoyed it, thought it was funny. I haven't watched it recently. But, and it's I guess it's one of those shows that, I guess my main thoughts on, interesting thoughts on MASH would be, so the show ran for, I believe, 12 seasons, something like that, like a long time, 10 seasons, talking about the Korean War, which lasted like 2 years. And so the show outlasted the war by quite a bit. But because I only watched it on reruns, I'm just seeing random episodes from all these different seasons. And I never as a little kid, I didn't understand that, this is from season 2 and this is from season 8. And just these characters would come and go and disappear all the time. I was like, I don't understand what's going on with this show. Like, I love this character. Where's this character? I didn't understand any of that. And so MASH is one of those shows where I first started to understand, TV didn't all just magically appear today. It was created over a period of time. And that's my big thoughts on MASH. But I mean, I enjoyed it, watched it back in the day, but it's been a while since I watched a set of episodes. Quite a while. Because I don't have cable, and so then I don't, have a mechanism to watch it easily. JM says, bye, lol, ain't paying for you to answer a question, lol. Well, you had an opportunity right there for me to answer a question because I read your comment, but you could have got it for free, but it didn't happen. But bye. People can be odd at times. Sonic Gamer, have you ever played God of War for the PS4? Nope, I've never played any of the God of War stuff ever. Like, I don't even know what the gameplay type stuff is. Iman says, what's your favorite Pokemon? I almost know nothing about. I've never watched Pokemon. I've never played Pokemon. I haven't played Pokemon Go. So I know very little about Pokemon. So I don't have any favorite because I have so little knowledge of Pokemon. Another one of those things that's from other people's childhoods, but it came out after my childhood. So I have very little exposure to much of it. I get confused by some questions. Nini Muggins 99 says, have you ever watched Star Wars? I have watched Star Wars actually. More than once have I watched Star Wars. Rich Reviews, thoughts on the supposed Louis C.K. comeback? I don't like to dive into divisive content and things that are not my area of expertise. My understanding of the supposed comeback is that he did like a sudden 15-minute set that was unannounced at a comedy club, and people have very long, strong opinions on all of it. I don't have strong opinions on it at all because I don't know enough about the early allegations, the severity of them, were there criminal charges. There's a bunch of those sorts of thoughts that I just don't know enough about or what he's done since to be able to chime in of what he should do and shouldn't do. And I think there's a side to it that I don't think all of us need to have opinions on everyone else's things, especially when a time when the court of public opinions is very strong right now. It has a lot of influence on people's careers, lives, victims, perpetrators, the whole thing, in a way that I think there's a lot of dangerous things to when we dive into some of that stuff too much based off of headlines. Like, we have a summary of something. We have out of context tweets and things like that, and I don't want to have too strong of opinions on some of that stuff for that reasons. I think it'd be a lot better if we kind of it would be easier for the things to be resolved in a healthy manner too, if we could step back from some of that stuff. Paperman, are you deaf? No, I am not deaf. Crazy Dragon Studios, have you had a movie that you were super hyped for and then it turned out to be one of your least favorite movies? Sort of, yeah. Oh, in a certain sense, I didn't. I mean, I always say that my least favorite movie of all time is Alien 3 because I loved Alien so much. So, to the nature of your question, that inherently would qualify for that. But I didn't watch Alien 3 in the theater. I watched Aliens, several years after Alien 3 came out. And so it was later on that I had what? Alien, this is like a disgrace. So that's one that comes to mind. The 1-2 punch of the Matrix sequels ended up being that. They're movies I just prefer to consider that they don't exist, really, in my mind. They mess up the canon of the movie that I do like. And that's for me, when sequels are a big problem for me when they hurt the movie that came before them. They break the mythology. So there's mythology established in the original Matrix that's like, oh, this is so cool, emotional, things work so well. And then you have this next one that undoes it undoes what came before. And I just don't like that. The one doesn't mean what you said before. Now the one means this thing over here. I don't like that. Or if you have victory at the end of Aliens and then that's undone immediately. I don't like that. And so that's when I start to feel pretty betrayed by sequels and don't tend to like them very much. Lego fan PS4. Dude! Answer my question! All right, I will. Do you like Saw? So I have a ranking of all the Saw movies on my channel. It's not by default my thing exactly. It's not I watched all of them in about 2 weeks. If you're not a fan of the genre, binge watching in that amount of time all the Saw movies is a bit much. And some of them I liked, and There's probably 2 or 3 of them I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, there's some cleverness in the writing and the way things worked out. And then about the other half of them, I was like, this is just too far. The scripts don't tie together. Like, the plot lines don't tie together. It's just like this. There's this separate thing over here about people in a maze, and there's this separate thing over here about an investigation, and they're not intertwined. And that stuff just started to feel very lazy in the writing, and like very lazy. Like, I can't believe how lazy you're doing this. So, yeah, but I've got a ranking where I kind of dive into all of that. Okay. Rich Reviews with a super chat. Thank you. Thoughts on True Detective Season 3 trailer? How bad was Season 2? So I haven't seen the... I don't have much to say here because I haven't seen the trailer yet. I just don't watch a lot of trailers for things, so I don't know the deal. I don't even know who the cast is of this season. I remember seeing something a while ago that was like, oh, that's pretty interesting casting, but I don't know who's in the season. I didn't watch Season 2 because I'd only heard bad things about it, and it's been a while since I watched Season 1. So I can't even chime in too much on that one. I was intrigued and interested by Season 1 when I watched it, and then heard horrible things about Season 2, so I never watched it and haven't watched the trailer. So unfortunately, I can't really give you my thoughts on the things you're asking about because I haven't watched them. Okay. Chloe, It's Possible says, what's your perfect cast for a Batman movie? I don't really have that. That's not something that I would have kind of locked in my mind. Like, I don't even have particular ideas that come to mind for the most part because it's kind of there's not one answer to it. There's not one, this is the perfect cast for Batman, because there's so many different ways you can do Batman that are good interpretations. You look at Batman 66, Adam West. Christian Bale would not have done well in that show. Ben Affleck would not have done well in that show. Michael Keaton would not have done well in that show. You take Adam West and you put him in The Dark Knight. Weird movie. Wouldn't have fit. And so it's not like there's this kind of one thing that's the thing that works. And then you add into that, there's really, because you have things like the Dark Knight Returns, that isn't a 50, 60-year-old Batman. You have Batman Beyond, that's like an 80-year-old Batman. And then you got Batman Year One, that's a 22-year-old Batman, or whatever age he is. You have an enormous spectrum of what the age is for Batman. So if you say you're going to do... If they announced right now that they're going to do a Dark Knight Returns adaptation, straight up, like, we're going to do that, who's your perfect casting? Well, the coolest thing you could do is you could get Michael Keaton as Batman to come back, and it's not really a continuation of Burton, but it allusions to continuation of Burton. And then you get like Bryan Cranston as Commissioner Gordon, because he already voiced him on Batman Year One. So just tie some things in that are pretty cool. Do something like that. But that's like such a niche thing. So I don't think there is like the perfect one. I don't even have. If Affleck's actually out, who do I want to play Batman? I don't have anyone that comes to mind. Like, I don't have any list. All right, got a couple super chats come in. Tyler Simmons, can you pitch your Dexter Season 8 and make it good? I don't think I could pitch Dexter Season 8 and make it good, especially not off the cuff. But I think I could pitch an alternative last 2 seasons. And even what I think would make for a good last 2 seasons is sort of what they did in Season 2 of Dexter. And so if you don't know what Dexter is, it's a show about the lead character is a serial killer, but he was raised by a police officer, and so he's a good serial killer. He's a serial killer that only kills serial killers. What if... and in Season 2 of Dexter... Basically, the plot line was they find all of his dead bodies, where he buries all the bodies in the ocean or the water. They find them, and so they're trying to hunt him down. I think that's what you need to do for the last season of Dexter. That's the way you book into the show properly, is that Dexter is being hunted down by the police, and everyone he knows and loves is being threatened by it. The police are chasing after him, and Deborah's in trouble. and that, like, and you put all the pressure to where basically the conclusion of the series isn't he's like, I'm my worst enemy or whatever he says, and goes off into a storm and dies and then isn't dead and has a beard for some reason. You don't do that. You have a conclusion to where the arc that is Dexter, which is him sort of becoming a human throughout the show, where at the beginning he's a totally empty sociopath with no feelings for anyone, and as the show kind of progresses, he actually starts to actually care about people and has a wife and kid that he actually values them. The act that is the end of the show is him finally owning up to, I'm a killer and I need to own this. And he's caught. Like, the show ends with him going to prison as this serial killer or something like that. That seemed like that was the actual appropriate, satisfying ending that bookends things. It's an arc for him that makes sense with what he's been doing. And his final act of humanity is I have to kill who I've been, which is not to die, but to kill the secret life person and own, I'm going to be public with who I am, and that means I'm going to jail. And, his son goes off with Deborah or something like that. Something like that. That would be my kind of pitch. Melissa Taylor, hey, how's it going? Super chat, and this is for Gamer Girl. Have you seen Grimm, and do you like it? Unfortunately, I have not seen Grimm, and so I can't dive into it at all to give you any thoughts on it. I wish I could, especially because it's super chat, and I wish I could give you more thoughts, but unfortunately, because I have not seen it, I can't dive into it to give you any thoughts. And it's just one that hasn't been on our radar to check it out. There's no particular story. It's not like I watched a trailer and went, that sucks. There's nothing like that. It's just another one of those shows out there that I just haven't happened to watch. Arhizen, what is your favorite action movie? I'd probably go, if you go just straight action movies, Die Hard. If you throw in, if you can put sci-fi in the mix too, so not straight action, Terminator 2. And I've talked about both those ones on my channel a good little bit. Jude Swindon asks, can you speak another language? No, I can't speak another language. I know a good bit of Spanish because I took a lot. Pretty much everyone in Texas in schools takes some Spanish. And so I took a lot of Spanish, and then I worked in fast food with some people that didn't speak English, and so I practiced a lot there. And then right now I work on construction sites with painters, and painters in Texas are extremely high percentage. Don't speak English, and so I practice a lot with them too a little bit, but I don't fluently speak any other languages. I just know, I can communicate well enough in Spanish when people try to interact with me. A bunch of people asking me to pick between different things. Paperman, Meg, or Slenderman? The Meg. Very much the Meg. AJ Daniels, The Godfather, or Scarface, The Godfather? I've never cared much for... Scarface has never really connected too much with me when I've watched it. Let's see. We got... Harson, will you answer this question? Yes, I have answered that question with yes. Awesome.com. What were you more disappointed with, Last Jedi or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? I know they're kind of like different types of disappointment. So it's tough to say. Like, an overall kind of my experience watching it disappointment was probably Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Big picture for the franchise, like, ooh, what are you doing with this direction? Last Jedi. Last Jedi was one where, like, okay, I can respect a lot of what you're doing. I see the value in this. This is kind of cool. I appreciate that you're not trying to just give me the obvious answer on everything. You're trying to kind of be clever with things and subvert my expectations. I appreciate that. And then with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it was just like, this is kind of distasteful. I don't think the story works. This is a weird, like, the way this is structured is very odd. The tone is just kind of all over the place. There's a nastiness to it that doesn't seem like it fits in the MCU. And so, I don't know. They're different types of disappointment for me. All right, Sam Cribbs, what is your favorite place you have been? I don't know. I don't really have a favorite place I've been. I kind of, as I've said in here, I don't really have favorites. I like diversity. So I've been to the mountains. I've been to the Rockies a bunch because both my parents are from Denver. That was cool. I've been on a couple cruises to the Caribbean, and that was cool. I've spent a lot of time in Florida. That was cool. I'm from California, so went to Santa Cruz Beach a lot growing up. That was cool. I've lived in Texas a very long time. I like Texas. So I appreciate the fact that I went to Hong Kong when I was in the 5th grade for spring break for a week. That was cool. So I don't have like this. This is the one favorite because I don't like to pick favorites. And then as a tip for how to ask a question that's more likely for me to answer or easier for me to answer, if you ask me to pick my favorite, I can't really give you a good answer because I can't just come up with favorites on the spot because I don't have a list in my mind. So if you have a question that's not asking my favorite, it's a lot easier for me. Samuel Parsley says, do you have the Office Complete Series Collection? No, I have most of the seasons on DVD, though. So we started buying them as we went along to watch them. Then they started showing up on Netflix, and so we have like through season 6 or 7 on DVD. And I don't want to own the last 2 seasons, so I wouldn't want to buy them anyway. Jansen Production says, cat or dog? I'm a dog person. We've always had dogs. Right now we only have one dog because our 2 previous dogs have died. So we have one dog right now, Doggy Bo, and he's probably only got a year or 2 left himself. It's depressing. Cobes owner says, do you play any instruments? I play guitar, and for that reason I also kind of play bass. Yeah, so I play that. I played in many bands over the years, lots of church music stuff too. Yeah. Rich Reviews has a super chat. Thank you. He says, what books have you been reading? If I could recommend something, it's Expanse books. So the one I haven't been going through books. What he's talking about is this year I'm trying to go through 52 books this year. And as of like June 1st, I had gone through 45 books. And I've really slowed down over the last 2 months. I've only gone like 4 or 5 more books since then. But, and I just finished doing an 8-week intensive YouTube class. And so, it was like 8 hours of homework per week. 1 week I went back through a book I'd already gone through, but it was like homework assignment was to read a book. So very intensive stuff. Even if you kind of watched over the last month where I've kind of experimented with a bunch of different things and changing some things, adding some language in, all of that ties back to some things I'm working on behind the scenes, looking at analytics. But for that reason, I haven't been going through as many books. So what have I been going through? What book have I been going through over the last recently? I've very, very, very slowly been going through, and maybe it's controversial, I don't know, but very slowly been going through Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, or whatever the title for that one is. Seemed like a book that was very influential for this year that a lot of people were going through, so it seemed of value for me to check it out. So that's one that I've been going through, and to see what everyone's been talking about and what's so shockingly controversial about this Jordan Peterson fellow. That's the one I've been going through. Rich Reviews also asked, if you could redo the last season of Lost, how would you approach it? It's the same thing as with Dexter. I don't think it's so much of redoing one season would fix the problems. I think the problems were kind of built in earlier, that they didn't have an ending that they were going towards. So I don't want to spoil Lost for people who haven't watched it, but essentially the first couple seasons, there's speculation. Well, I can't say anything without spoiling too much, but the premise of the show is people are on an island and things getting weird and there's supernatural and there's time jump stuff that goes on. And then the last season just goes off in this whole other direction, and the plot twist in the last episode just kind of like, what? Just felt like a cheat. And it didn't really, it answered the question of that last season. It's like they needed a conclusion to the show that felt like we have answers. But they didn't have answers to what happened in the first 5 seasons. So they invented a new mystery for season 6, and you get to the end of season 6, and you have this big reveal, and you go, oh, that's what's been going on all of season 6. But there's no real satisfying answer for the series as a whole. I can't really pitch a solution to it because it's a show that, and I think inherently had a fundamental problem of, you had a group of people, J.J. Abrams being one of them, but not really the driving force for most of the show, that are really good at building the mystery that didn't have answers. So there's not a way to pitch, like, here's how you would have resolved it. because you would have had to have a show that had answers built into it from the beginning. And part of what made it interesting was that they had these weird mysteries that, like, how are they going to resolve this? There never was an answer. There never was a good answer. And so it's a fundamentally flawed show that I don't think there is a solution to the Lost problem. You either dig it or you don't. Someone keeps screaming Batman Arkham. I don't know why you're screaming Batman Arkham. I now own all of the main Batman Arkham games. In theory, at some point in time, I'm going to rank all the Batman Arkham games. I'm trying to figure out how to do that with integrity. Because it's been a while since I played through Arkham City and Arkham Asylum. And I played through Origins probably only about a year ago. And right now I bought Arkham Knight about a month ago. So the fact that it's been so long since I played Arkham City, I don't know how to do it properly and be able to speak with integrity and not just kind of like say empty things. So we'll see what happens. But I am thinking about it. Kaizen Chief says, do you listen to any podcasts? Yeah, I drive a truck for a living. And so I drive in a car for about 8 hours a day. So I listen to a ton of podcasts or jump around quite a bit in different types of podcast type things. And there's I don't subscribe to too many, but I like figure out what are the interesting episodes of these ones where people do interviews and stuff like that and listen. So like, I don't subscribe to Joe Rogan's. Like, I don't listen to every episode, but when someone interesting's on there, I'll check it out. So when I heard Macaulay Culkin was on there, I was like, I got to listen to that right now. And so I listened to some of those ones. The one I discovered was listening to today, Michael Rosenbaum, Lex Luthor from Smallville. He has a podcast, and he like interviews like Tom Welling, Stephen Amell, Justin Hartley, like all these kind of actors and people that are interesting in light of like somewhat in his niche. So that's what I was listening to today, was the ones with Tom Welling and Stephen Amell. That's what I listened to today. There's a guy named, I think Adam Grant has an interesting one on work life that has some neat stuff in it. Malcolm Gladwell has some stuff that's interesting. From time to time, I can listen to some political stuff that I don't want to go into at all because it is not be useful for me. So I listen to a lot of different stuff. I used to listen to like the John Campea podcast, Collider Movie Talk, but it's been about this whole year I haven't listened to much of that stuff at all. Like I'll watch some videos and stuff from time to time, but I don't, because I talk about movies with you guys, because I follow it here. Some of the appeal of listening to other stuff, like I'm just not as interested in it as anymore, and because I spend so much of the time with you guys, so I want to listen to Michael Rosenbaum talk about Smallville back into the day, or Malcolm Gladwell talk about whatever random history stuff he talks about, or Adam Grant talk about the work environment on The Daily Show. All right. Let me see. What do we have in here? Thank you guys so much for watching. I didn't know how long I was going to go today, but you guys keep asking questions. All right, here's what I can answer. Jameson Higgs, did you pre-order Spider-Man for PS4? Yes, I did. I think this Spider-Man game is the first game I have pre-ordered since StarCraft 2, like 10 years ago, or whenever that came out. So it has been a long time since I pre-ordered a game. So, and I was my thought when I ordered it was like, oh man, I can get this and I can play it that opening weekend, and then I can review it on my channel. Maybe this will be my first video game review. So the game comes out, like the 7th, I think? My wife is due September 11th. So if she's early at all, that whole plan won't happen. And even if she's not early, the 2 days before baby arrives, I'm like, no, wife, pregnant wife, go away. I'm playing video games. Probably not going to happen. So I'll probably play it just a little bit, and then I'll have a new baby arrive, and won't get played too much. So I have pre-ordered it. I just don't know how much I'm going to be able to play it whenever it first comes out. Samuel Parsley, what is your favorite Predator movie, including the AVP movies? The original Predator. I don't think there's any competition. Nothing's close to it. And it's not even because I just think the other ones are so bad, just because the first one's so good. So very easily the original one. And I'll have a ranking whenever, depending on how life things play out with this whole pregnant wife thing, since the Predator, the Predator comes out 4 days after my wife's supposed to have a newborn. So I have no idea how some of this stuff's going to play out. But in theory, I'll have a video of that one. Cody Grand. Are you kidding me, Sean? Mine was all caps. I don't know what that means. I don't think if anyone if you're wondering about like why didn't I answer your question because you put it in all caps, I'm talking right now. I'm literally trying to articulate clear thoughts right now, and so I'm not reading the chat section because like I'm talking to you. So when I stop talking and I start leaning forward, it's then I'm reading it, and if it's all caps and you're screaming at me, that doesn't make it more likely for me to read it necessary. So, Alex Martinez, all caps, best played in villain in movie, or best played villain in movies, Hans Gruber, Die Hard. So, yeah, Hans Gruber's a great one. You know, of course, Darth Vader's a great one. Heath Ledger's Joker's a great one. Loki's a great one. So there's a number of great ones, but for action movies, I go with Hans Gruber as the definitive. That's a great performance right there. Or I got a super chat from Vincent Lafremboise or something like that. I need your opinion. Which way is the correct way to watch Star Wars movies? Chronologically or release dates? Include the spin-offs? The way I showed my son, so the order I went with when showing my 6-year-old son, that preserves the twists and turns and makes it so you can appreciate things. So this is what I actually did. A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, end of it, this big, I am your father, what's going on? Then I went back and watched 1, 2, 3. And so then it basically, like, you go through it and there's these rumors like, Anakin, your father, was a good friend of mine. And then the big twist reveal, wait, like Darth Vader is Anakin. And so then it's like, wow, what happened? Then we go back and we tell that story. We watch 1, 2, and 3. And so you see the tragic fall of Anakin. And then you go and watch Return of the Jedi, which resolves the big fall of Anakin. It's a weird to watch them in actual episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a weird way to watch them. It's not designed. They didn't release that way for a reason. It spoils the twists and the turns. So it's a silly thing to do. So I was 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. Then these spin-offs I view as they're like nice, like fun stories that's separate from that. So after you've watched the main story, then you can sprinkle those ones in whenever you want. But 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and then whenever you want to watch the other 2 ones, you can. So I took my son to see Solo opening weekend. He hasn't watched Rogue One yet because everybody dies, and that seems pretty heavy for him at his particular age. But that's my answer to your question. Thank you for the super chat. And it's sort of called the Machete Order, but Machete Order cuts off Phantom Menace. Whenever Machete Order originally came out, the guy said don't show him Phantom Menace, and I disagree with that. I think there's important stuff in there, and for its faults, it fills in gaps. It fills in for information. Whoa! Wow. Thirst for thrill, fighting hard to get my attention. Pizza, pretzels, burgers, fries. Now that I have your attention, any movie where you want the antagonist to win? I mean, there's movies where the antagonist does win, and I've enjoyed that. There's one that I bought yesterday at the store where that happens. Then there's one I bought a week or 2 ago, or 2 weeks ago at the store. There was a big hit this year where the villain won. I felt it worked well for the stories that they were telling. Movies, I guess if you're asking if there's a movie where the good guys won and would have preferred if the bad guys won, I don't have one that comes to mind. But then again, I've been talking for like an hour and a half straight, so maybe my brain's not all there. But I don't have like one lined up where I was like, man, I wish the bad guys had just capped him. All right, I missed the name on it, but someone asked me, have I seen the movie Face Off? Yeah, I mean, I've seen Face Off 30 times. I mean, I saw Face Off opening weekend when it came out because I was huge on John Woo in Hong Kong cinema in general when that movie came out. And it was like that resurgence of Nicolas Cage. He won the Oscar and he's like, I'm going to do 3 action movies. And so he does The Rock, Con Air, and Face Off in like a year and a half. And I thought they were all awesome. So yeah, I mean, I've seen Face Off many times. Last summer, I actually was like trying to show it to some people. I didn't know what it was. I hadn't heard anything. I was like, oh, you got to watch Face Off. And we're watching the movie, and it gets to the point where they swap faces. The surgery begins, and they're like, take the face off. And they literally go, wait, they literally take people's faces off? Yep. The title is not just referring to 2 people duking it out. They literally take people's faces off. Someone asked me, am I caught up on Supergirl? I've talked about it pretty extensively in this live deal. No, I'm not caught up at all. I'm a season and a half behind. Luke A says, please answer my question. What is your thoughts on SpongeBob? I don't think I've seen a full episode of SpongeBob. That's another one I was like in high school by the time it came out or something like that. So I've never watched SpongeBob. My kids have seen some of it somewhere, but they don't watch it at our house. So I never watched SpongeBob, so I don't have any thoughts on SpongeBob. All right. Rich Reviews with a super chat. Thank you. Favorite series finale. So a great one is Star Trek Next Generation. Just felt like, especially for an episodic TV show, it's not like this big arc. Ooh, sorry about that. That needed to be resolved. I mean, it found a way to really nicely feel like a bookend to the show. You're like, that's right. That feels like how this show should end. So all good things from Star Trek. That was a really good one. Breaking Bad left me satisfied. And I don't know if the Breaking Bad one was actually as awesome as I think it was, or if it was because 1 week earlier was the Dexter finale. And the Dexter finale I thought was horrible. That it's so bad that it just made Breaking Bad look amazing by comparison. I'm not really sure, but I thought the one for Breaking Bad was really good. Yeah, those are the 2 that come to mind. Sean League, thoughts on Daredevil? That's a very open question. I've done multiple videos talking about the Marvel Netflix stuff where I've extensively said that I love both seasons of that show. I think the Ben Affleck movie is overhated. Not that it's great, maybe not even that it's good. It just doesn't deserve the hate that it gets. I think some of that's just people, the same way, it's like negative nostalgia, where people overly fondly think of things from their childhood, and it just kind of tints things better than they were. That movie seems to have negative nostalgia, in that it was a weird time for Ben Affleck's career. And it was a weird time for comic book movies in general, as they were trying to figure out how to do them right in the tone and how literal do you go with things. And so then you have this movie. It's not amazing. But you have Ben Affleck at just the wrong time in his career. And then you got Bullseye with an actual bullseye on his head. And you got this goofy fight scene at a park. And so people remember those 3 things, and they go, oh, Daredevil, that one just sucks. It was off. It's one of the worst movies ever made. But it's not. It's not one of the worst movies ever made. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not even really saying it's good. Just it's an easy target. It's easy for people to pick on, and I think a lot of that's what's going on with that movie. All right, I'm going to go for just about 5 more minutes or something like that. Take a few more questions. Because I'm at almost 2 hours, so I should probably get going. Awesome.com. Indiana Jones 5 thoughts. It's a bad idea. The appeal of Indiana Jones is this adventurer. And the idea of... So Harrison Ford was born in 1942. 1942. That means this year, Harrison Ford turns 76. They're not filming yet. That means filming a year from now. So he's 77. Maybe they film 2 years from now. 78. And while he's aged very well, he's in good shape for 76-year-old man. But he's not Sylvester Stallone, roided out 70-year-old man. Like, Stallone looks more fit than 90% of people will ever be in their life at 70 years old. That's not Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford's just a guy that's aged well. But he's 76. And you're talking about doing an Indiana Jones movie. That just seems like such a bad idea. Like, I just don't... What you want from Indiana Jones, of whether he's swinging the whip and going across ravines, punching Nazis in the face, you can't do that with a 78-year-old Harrison Ford. It just doesn't work. Or even the fact that he's this handsome man that's sleeping with the ladies. Well, he's married now. He'll be married to Marion for 10 years now. Maybe Marion's died or something, but it's not like you want 78-year-old Indiana Jones being like, hey, ladies, how's it? Like, you don't want that. So I just don't know what they're going for. I don't know how it could be good. It just seems like there's so much potential for it to be bad, unfortunately. Okay. Last final questions in here. Alex Pug. Please read. I've been watching the whole stream and you never read. Are you more excited for Captain Marvel or Shazam? Technically, I did read that earlier. I just didn't answer it. But I had read it. And I think I read one of your questions before. Am I more excited for Shazam or Captain Marvel? I think I have to go with Shazam because I've seen a trailer. And I don't tend to get excited for some of these movies that, like, unless I'm like specifically tied to the source material or something like that, I don't get too excited until I see the trailer. If I see the trailer and I can compare, so I can give a better answer. Just based off of the fact that I've seen Shazam and I went, well, that's kind of cool. I dig Zachary Levi. I want to see Zachary Levi succeed. So I get excited for that one for that reason. Whereas Captain Marvel, it's just another Marvel movie to me. I haven't read the comics, so it's not like the direction I've gone in my comic book reading before. I don't have specific, I just want Brie Larson to succeed. So I'm interested in it because it's set in the 90s. How's it going to, they're going to have some ties in some way to Infinity War, probably in a post-credit scene. All that's interesting to me, but as a movie in and of itself, it's like, yeah, I'm excited for it because it's a MCU film. Of course I'm excited. But based on the specifics, I got to go Shazam. I've seen the trailer. Could change, 2 weeks from now, whenever Captain Marvel trailer drops. I'm not saying that. I don't know that. I'm just throwing a date out there. Whenever that Captain Marvel trailer drops, if I watch it, that's amazing. Everything could change. But there you go. Peter Gallagher. Do you like the film Bad Boys? Yeah, it's got Tay Leone in it, so that's awesome. First Michael Bay film. Makes it interesting. And I guess maybe the first leading role for Will Smith, I believe. I think that's his first one where he's in the lead role. So, interesting. I don't love it, but I like both the movies. Saw the second one in the theater, and, it's a fun experience to watch with a crowd. But so I like them. They're not, I don't understand. I don't think they should do a third one. Or, I'm not, if Michael Bay comes back, I'd be for it. Because Michael Bay he's so over the top that it's interesting. Even with doing bad Transformers movies, they're so ridiculously over the top. They're interesting bad. And so whatever he would do with Bad Boys 3 would be interesting to me because it would be just so big and extravagant. But them getting someone else that's like, oh, I'm a fan of the series, let me do... That's not very interesting to me. So there's my quick thoughts on it. BCW Pro, thoughts on the original RoboCop? I love it. I love that little Paul Verhoeven window there in the late 80s, early 90s. I love all that stuff. The ultra violence and everything, just excessive. Just nice, short streak, but a nice streak there. So I really like that movie. And I could get excited for the new one if Peter Weller does come back. That would be the thing that would get me excited. Peter Weller's actually going to be in this continuation thing. I would be on board for it, but he just did this interesting way of having ultraviolence, which I'm game for, and tongue-in-cheek commentary on free markets and consumerism, capitalism, all this type of stuff that just was corporate stations, and it was just interesting. Like while it's very much a direct action movie, direct sci-fi movie, there's a way to do it that's just a direct version of that, and just infused in this world with this dark sense of humor and almost satire. It just makes it interesting. Like all those ones where that one as well as Starship Troopers, just interesting the way he did stuff. And I wish he'd kept doing more stuff like that. And I guess I don't know if he calmed down after the turn of the century or because he was old or whatever, but kind of lost some of it, just touched a little bit. Dorito Chip Gamer says, dude, please answer. That's not a question, so I can't answer, but I can scream what you just said. Dustin does stuff. Favorite comic book movie of all time? Please read and answer. Like I said, I'm talking while doing all this. I don't have anyone helping me do all it, so I like writing. Please read doesn't actually make it easier for me to read it because I'm talking when I'm not. So it just the longer they are, the less likely I am to read them usually. I think this fall I'm pretty sure I'm going to do my top 10 favorite comic book movies. I don't really have one lined up. The one that means the most to me is Superman 1 and 2 combined together. They're dated. They've got some issues. So I don't know if I'd say they're the best, but they're really important. And they set the template. And they cut the path for everybody else. That made it easier for everyone else to build on the foundation that Richard Donner paved for them. So it's tough to say. So that's important to me. Batman 89 is special for me, but definitely not my favorite. Definitely not the best. Iron Man is pretty special to me and important. Avengers is special and important. Guardians of the Galaxy is especially important. Batman Begins and Dark Knight are especially important to me. I really liked Infinity War, but I don't feel like I'd say that one. There's some answers. Don't know what I'll say whenever I make the video. Oh man, Gavin Squires asks a cruel question. Die Hard versus T2 versus Raiders. I don't know. Here's what I would say to that. Here's my cheater answer is that I would say you just listed off the best sci-fi action movie, the best straight up action movie, and the best adventure movie. So it's sort of like picking is the best of this genre better than the best of this genre. Of those movies, the least ambitious of the story in question, I would say, is Die Hard. So if I'm going to factor in ambition to the films, I think Die Hard is the least ambition. Because it's a fairly straightforward action movie. Guys take this building hostage, man has to take them out. Single location. One is, the others, one is globe-trotting, period piece in the Nazis. And the other is robots take over the world and we have to stop that. Time travel. Pretty big, important, ambitious plot lines. How do you pick between those two? Raiders or T2? I can't do it. I can't do it. I was being dishonest because I don't actually have these two up here and Die Hard down here. They're all three on the same level. I can't pick. I'm sorry. You can't force me. That's a tough question. All right, Gamer Girl, when do you think the next Mary Poppins trailer will drop? I don't remember when the first one dropped. Was it a month or two ago? Movie comes out. I'm going to go October. I would guess late September, early October is what I would guess because it's about 3 months out from the movie. That's a good time to have a second trailer that's like your big trailer that shows a lot. And then, right around Thanksgiving, you do one that is your final trailer. So I would guess about 1 more month is when we'll get the next one. Slide Dude says, you are awesome, Sean. No, you are awesome, Slide Dude. Hugh2212, please answer. I've been here for an hour and a half. Me too, man. I have been here an hour and a half too. Thoughts on Toy Story 4? I'm nervous. I'm nervous about it. A couple of reasons. Reason number one I'm nervous about it is that Toy Story 3 ended really well. And it bookended a trilogy. It felt like, oh yeah, the story begins with this little boy and then the toy gets brought into it. And it ends with it moving on to a new place. And so it just makes a lot of sense. And then with the themes of it, of growing up and things like that, it was resolved. There's not an obvious next step that's not just essentially rebooting it. So they say, I think they've even said it's going to be like a rom-com. It's been kind of the rumor, speculation, or what they've actually said. Something like that. There's like a romance vibe. So I just don't know what that means. So that makes me nervous. So, no, reason number one is that it felt like it was bookended. And so it's like, why are we continuing with this? Like, I don't know what you're going to do, but you're scaring me. Reason number two is that Pixar feels like maybe they're not where they were 10 years ago. Pixar 10 years ago was just this crazy outside the box. We're going to make a movie with a robot that doesn't talk for an hour. We're going to have a rat pulling someone's hair and just stuff that, like, I don't think that's going to work. And then it did. Like, just real crazy creative stuff. And they're landing into like a lot safer territory and a lot more sequels. And when you start doing that, you get safer. And, I was real positive on Incredibles 2, but, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. But a lot of people were a lot more like, this was real safe. Feels like we're rehashing some stuff. And, then you had Monsters U a couple years back. That was good, but it was safe. Cars 3, it's Talladega Nights, it's Rocky 3 as a Cars movie. It's just not great Pixar. It's not like, wow, that's ambitious storytelling. And so it just doesn't, feels like some of the magic's there, like well-oiled machine, but the magic's not quite there. And so you think those first 3 Toy Story movies were all kind of in that initial magical first 15 years before they'd really had a big dud or anything like that. And now we're at a time where it seems like some of the higher-ups and the people that count money are the people that are making some more decisions. And that makes me nervous. At the same time, track record for Pixar is still phenomenal. Track record for Toy Story, even better. So I want to know more. I want to see a trailer. I want to get a vibe for where they're going with it. But my initial reaction is like, why are we going in this direction? Like, you did Coco, people loved it, and it was interesting, it was unique, it was something, it's a different direction to go. Why don't do more of that? That's Pixar at its best is when it's going crazy and just trying stuff. Sonic fan, why do you hate the 3 prequel Star Wars films and why? I don't. I've never said I hate the prequels. I never have said that. So I don't know why. I don't fully understand the question. If you look at my rankings, 2 of them are at the bottom. And I think they belong there. For the reasons stated in them. There's some big story issues with Attack of the Clones. And there's some bad choices in the storytelling with The Phantom Menace. But I've never said I hate them. I've never said that. And I think what happens is people look at my rankings, and inherently there's things at the bottom and there's things at the top. And someone else does their ranking. The difference is that a ranking doesn't actually tell you what number 10 means. Number 10 could mean it's a horrible movie. Or I could rank my top 10 favorite Steven Spielberg movies. And number 10 on that list is a very good movie to a great movie. Number 10 on my ranked best Steven Spielberg movies is not a bad movie by any stretch of the... It's a very good movie, but it's number 10 on that ranking. So when people look at it and they say, hey, you got 2 prequels at the bottom of your list, that means you hate them. That's not what that means for me. And they say that because on their ranking, they hate The Last Jedi, and they have The Last Jedi last. Therefore, they take that emotion that's associated with number 10 on their list, and they take it over to my list. I don't associate a hate at all. I've never really tried to come up with a rating, a score for the prequels to know where I would place them. But as a point of reference, I gave Last Jedi a pretty good review when it came out, and it's number 8 on my Star Wars ranking. And I would stand by that. Now, I probably wouldn't stand by as high of those scores I gave Last Jedi when it first came out, but I wouldn't drop it a ton. It's not like I'd be like, bomb the movie now. And so I don't hate the prequels. I think they're movies that if George Lucas had written a 3-page treatment for each of them, or longer treatment, he could have written a 20-page treatment, and then handed it off to Lawrence Kasdan, or handed it off to Brad Bird. Oh, yeah, where are we at? No, yeah, we're talking about 20 years ago. So, no. Yeah, Lawrence Kasdan, Brad Bird would be modern ones. Who's 20 years ago. Handed off to... So who would have been a good one to hand it off to back then? I don't know. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. But if you hand it off to someone that was really good back 20 years ago, maybe look at who was working on the Spielberg movies at the time or something like that. What's a good adventure movie? It's late 90s. But hand it off to that person and let them write it, and then let Spielberg do one of them. Let some other director do them. I think they would have been good, but I don't hate them. Sorry, I spent too long on that one. One more from Rich Reviews. Would you ever do or attempt a 24-hour live stream? Yeah. I don't have plans. I do not have plans to do a 24-hour live stream. But absolutely, if it was tied to I'll put this out here. I'll put this out here as a thought. I'm hoping next year to be able to go on a trip to the Navajo Nation to do some service work there with my church. I went 5 years in a row, and I haven't been able to go for the last 2.5 years for reasons that if you know my history with church in my previous life, you know what they are. I wasn't able to go for a little bit, and I'm hoping I'm able to go next summer. And this is going to the most impoverished part inside of the United States. The Navajo are the group that has the least money. Now, they're kind of a sovereign nation, but they're inside. It's a weird dynamic. It's a strange way to describe it, but they're the lowest income people. It's shocking. The place that we go, the place that we've been to is the food pantry, and kind of for this area of the Navajo Nation. They did not have electricity 15 years ago. At the point in time where we started going there, I think they'd had electricity for about 5 years. So about 12 years they've had electricity at the place that's the food pantry for this community inside of the Navajo Nation. They did not have running water when we were starting going. I still don't know if they have running water. I think they got a line hooked up in the last, right around when I stopped going there, they got a line going out there. But no times I went there did they have flushing toilets. We used outhouse, or the last year I went there, they had flushing toilets that we weren't supposed to use because they didn't last for very long. We used outhouses almost every year I went there. The showers was like this rigged thing that we'd have to fill a tank of water from the well down the road. And so this is basically the food pantry didn't have a refrigerator when we first went there. We played the foundation for it. So back to your question, would I ever do a 24-hour live stream? Yeah, I would do something like as a fundraiser or something before I would go on the trip to basically create a scenario where you guys could help expand the food pantry, the community center for this community that we go to. You guys could be a part of that. And part of the way I could do that would be to do a 24-hour live stream and say, hey, this is a fundraiser. Like one year we were out there and they were trying to get the condenser for the refrigerator in the food pantry. So they had like a refrigerator in it, but it didn't have a condenser. So it was this big, gigantic refrigerator that was walk-in. There was a cooler that had no condenser. So it was just like this room temperature space. And we were trying to get enough money to be able to buy it. So what we could do through this channel doing a live stream, I could talk to them and figure, what's that next thing to expand the food pantry for an entire community? And we could be a part of raising the money and say like if I can chip in this much, and maybe I could even talk to some people to find out if they could like double what you guys gave in, and we could find some need in that community that you guys would be a part of providing the funds to make that happen. I would love it if we'd be able to do that. And I could, I'd have to do it like 2 weeks before the trip because it would wipe me. It like 24 hours talking straight, it would jack me up. It would screw me up if I did that physically. And I'd need time to recover from doing it. But I would absolutely do that if it meant that we could really make an impact and you guys could be a part of that. It would be fun because I could take it and I make some vlogs and bring my GoPro and there it is. That's us installing the condenser for this food pantry. Anyway, that's a long answer to your question, but that's what I'd hope to be able to do something like that. Ghost Killer, play the new Spider-Man game and do it for 24 hours. and then my fingers would fall off. I'm sure my son would enjoy that, though, to sit down and be able to do that with me. All right, let me see if I can find one final kind of good question. What's a good final question for me? Thirst for Thrills. I'm getting off. Thanks for answering at least one of my questions. Thanks for chiming me in for as long as you can. Real quick, Peter Gallagher says, thoughts on Beverly Hills Cop 4? Too little, too late. Gamer Girl says, will Miss Chandler be back for the next AMA stream? I don't know. This one, I just didn't want to ask her to do it. When I told her I was going to, I was like, hey, can I do this? Or you can be able to watch the kids. She's like, yeah. And she asked me, hey, do you need me to join you? I was like, no. I mean, she's very pregnant. So she'll be back soon. These are easy to do when she can ask me the questions. And I have some rapport, someone to bounce off of. And she can kick people out that are being obnoxious or anything like that. But she'll be back. She literally kind of volunteered to help with this one. I just didn't want to bring her in. I just want to be able to go as long as I wanted, not worry about her, not worry about the kids, and not make a big deal about it. So sometimes I answer questions too long. Someone says Jurassic Park or Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't know how you pick those. I'd probably go Raiders, but Jurassic Park's amazing too. Atari 2600. Maybe I'll end with this one. Do you like Captain America 1990? Actually, I got a super chat. I guess I'll end on that one. Yeah, I actually do. I watched Captain America 1990. I recorded it off of like HBO or Showtime or something like that back in like 94. And I watched it all the time. So I have so much nostalgia for that movie. It's not good. It's certainly not great. Yeah, I absolutely enjoy that movie. And my wife gets mad because I put it on from time to time. She's like, this movie's awful. Why are you watching? It's like, but it's my childhood. So nostalgia goggles kind of cover my eyes when I watch that one. And so I'm way too easy on it. Mohan, I don't know how to pronounce yours. I'm sorry. Mohan with the super chat. We'll end on this one. What would be the order you rank these? Futurama, Disenchantment, and The Simpsons. Have you ever seen Disenchantment on Netflix? Highly recommended. So I haven't watched Disenchantment yet, so I can't rank that one at all. And thank you for the super chat. Can't rank that one at all. I actually only just saw it on there. I was like, I saw the artwork and I was like, that's Matt Groening, isn't it? And I looked at it, it was Matt Groening, but I haven't watched any of it. And then, so as for Futurama and The Simpsons, I tried to watch Futurama a bunch of times, and I had some roommates that were really into it. A guy named Kevin, he got married a couple years back or so, good friend of mine. He's actually probably going to come up here to have dinner with me in October once the baby gets here. He loved it. Even his username on stuff was kind of a reference to Futurama. It's a long history, but I just never got into it. It was like The Simpsons, with sci-fi The Simpsons without the magic touch for me that made The Simpsons work. And so I'd have to go. I mean, Simpsons is The Simpsons. It's what the longest running show on television right now. We're almost at 30 years. For a reason that there's a sharpness to it. The characters were just so well fleshed out at the beginning. Such a great set of characters that just so funny. So many different places to go with things. So much great talent kind of came out of it that you don't even think about. Like Conan O'Brien, wrote the monorail episode. Like Conan O'Brien that you think about from hosting late night show television. Writer for The Simpsons. And there's just a lot of stuff like that. There's just a real special show that continues to be a special show. I haven't really watched it the last 15 years, which is funny to talk about a show and be like, I haven't really watched the last 15 years of it. But I watched the first 15 years of it. But that's a show, that's an interesting, iconic show. But I think I watched every single episode of the first 11 seasons or so. And we'll always watch The Simpsons back in the day. So there's my answer to it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Watching all this fun stuff with me. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much and I had some interesting things to say. If I didn't get to your question, Gus Hides Ruin says, well, no more questions then. That's true. We're over 2 hours. So it's probably about time to sign off on this one. People are saying weird stuff. Snorts corn powder. Wow, it's getting weird in the comment section, chat section right now. People saying I hate you. Wow, it's getting dark in there. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll probably start trying to do more of these. I didn't know if how well I'd be able to do with them without my wife helping me, and it seemed to work okay. People kept watching, so I guess it worked well enough. And I'll see you guys in the future. I don't know what my next video is. It'll probably be Saturday. I think Saturday my Jack Ryan ranking. So there you go. You guys know what's coming next.